Hey y'all, Big Tim here. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Old School and Bass with Big Tim, the truth behind the trophy series, or in this case, the fails. This fail, again, it's all up in here. This is about my temper. I'm going to tell you a couple of times how my temper actually defeated some possibilities for some really good tournament results. It's true. I have a bad temper. I've been learning to control it more and more every year, but it still comes out to play. I remember when I was in high school, my algebra teacher was an assistant football coach, and I had that reddish blonde hair and stuff in high school, and the algebra teacher comes up and says, "Hey Tim, why don't you try out for football? You redheads always got a good temper. You'd make a great football player." And I thought, yeah, you're probably right. I do have a temper, but well, there's an awful lot of practice in the summertime when I like to go fishing. So, yeah, I wasn't really one to want to think about playing high school football. Kind of wished I would have, but I also know I would not have done well out there in all the practice and everything else. I just like to be able to get to go fishing whenever. Back then I was going with my grandpa a lot, and I don't think I would have traded football practice for going fishing with grandpa. But yeah, always had kind of a temper. I've learned to manage it a little bit over the years, but sometimes it still gets the best of me. One of the times that it affected my tournament the most, we had a TBF Southern Divisional on Lake Norman in North Carolina. And I was actually doing pretty well. I think the first day I had 10 or 11 pounds, and, that wasn't, up at the top of the whole tournament results, but it was at the top for the state of Kentucky. I think, Kentucky, we were down in the teens, I think. I think the guy that was above me had 12 pounds, and I think I had 10 or 11. And that had us like 12th place, 14th place, something like that. So, I mean, we weren't in the top 10, but we were pretty close. And then on the second day, I had caught some fish in a couple of areas that had worked well for me. And there was a lot of fish that we caught on jig, a lot of nice largemouth in a couple of spots. And that's how I've been catching all my fish on jig. And the second day, I didn't do quite as well. And I did have a limit, so I was happy with that. And I figured I had about 9 pounds. But what ended up happening is on the way back, one of my fish died. And I thought, wow, that's going to cost me a half pound. This really stinks. So we're waiting at the dock. I've got my aerators on and everything else. And you have to wait for your flight to be called to bring your fish up. Or maybe we were waiting on a bag. I can't remember, but we were waiting at the dock before I could get my fish out. So by the time I went to get my fish out, one more had died. I thought, well, this is killing me. This is a pound off my weight. I have 9 pounds. Now I'm down to 8. And I was a little aggravated by it. Believe it or not, by the time I walked up to the stage after putting the fish in the live well, another one died. I actually had 3 fish that died. And it's rare for me to have fish die. And these were not deep hooked fish. They were all shallow. They did not get hooked down in the gullet. They didn't bleed. Really don't know why they died other than it was a pretty hot day. And I had 3 fish dead. And I said I thought I had 9 pounds. I actually thought I had 8. So now I'm thinking, geez, now I've only got 6.5 pounds. This is going to ruin me. Turns out I did have 9. And I did lose 1.5 pounds for the dead fish. But that still kept me in second place for our team, and I was only 1 pound out of the lead. And when I walked away from the tournament after, I shouldn't say the tournament, that day of the tournament, when I walked away after day 2, I felt real good. I was only 1 pound away from taking the lead, because at that time the leader in the state would go on to the national championship. So I'm only a pound out. I've got a great opportunity. I can go tomorrow and make this happen. I'm the only guy on the team that stayed consistent. The guy that had 12 pounds, I think he come in with like 4 or 5. There was another guy on the team that had a good day 2, but didn't have a good day 1. I was pretty consistent. So I figured if I could keep my consistency the third day, I would have a good shot. And left fairly upbeat. Well, it's customary on the second night of the tournament to have a team meeting and dinner, as we did this time. And we went to a really nice steakhouse. The whole team was there, and we were having a real good time. Everybody's having a couple drinks. Everybody's eating their dinner, and just having a really good time. And I had a few beers, and something happened at the end of that dinner that triggered in my mind and said, man, if those fish hadn't died, you would be in the lead for this team right now. And actually would have been pretty decent in the overall standings too. If I hadn't killed those 3 fish, I'd have been doing pretty good. Well, then that got in my head, and it stewed with me, and it made me madder and madder and madder. I didn't sleep well that night because it was in my head. And when I woke up, I was mad about it. So I tried to put it out of my head. I tried the best I could, but it's always in the back of there. So the guy I draw out on the third day, I can't remember what state he was from, but I think it was Florida. He was like in, I think he said he was like in 10th place of a 12-man team or something like that. Most of the time when a non-boater is that far down the list on their state, they will tell you, take the boat, just take me some fish, and I'll stay in the back and you can do what you want to do. But not this guy. He decided he wanted his half of the time, because in those days it was customary that the non-boater got half the day in the front and the boater got half the day in the front. And he wanted his time up front, regardless of how bad he was on his team. Got to abide by the rules. So let him have his day at the front. But that just made me even madder. And I had every opportunity, especially in his spots. I was in the back of the boat. I pulled out a shaky head, and I had enough bites to have a limit. Now, whether they were big fish, I don't know. But I'm pretty sure I had enough bites to catch a decent limit. And I was just blowing them all. And I really didn't know why, what was happening. And the only thing I can come down to is my attitude. Being mad and having a bad attitude about it, I think was the only thing that was costing me, because I had a bunch of bites. When I got to the front of the boat, because I let him have the morning, because my fish were actually biting better in the afternoon. They were getting up under the shade of the docks, and that's how I've been catching fish, on a jig under the docks. And in the afternoon, I thought I would do better, but it didn't get as sunny as it had been, so those fish didn't position under the docks as well as I'd hoped, and I didn't catch any. I had a few bites, would break off. I had one, and this was amazing because my non-boater actually saw it. I wish I had him where he could talk about it, just because 2 guys talking about it is real proof. But there was one fish that I caught that was the smartest fish I'd ever seen. I had what appeared to be probably about a 3-pound Kentucky. Of course, down there they call them spots. And I caught it on the dock. And this fish literally had wrapped itself around the dock twice. And I couldn't do anything with it. I was on my way on the troll motor because it was just kind of sitting there. I was on my way with the troll motor to get up there and grab it when he finally broke off. And it was a good fish, at least 3 pounds, maybe even 4. And it was the smartest fish. There was nothing I can do with it. When I set the hook on it, it had already spun on the outside of the dock and wrapped around, got inside the dock again, and was trying it again. Nothing I could do. Had no control whatsoever. And that was heartbreaker. But I kept going. I thought, hey, I had that one bite. Maybe I can catch some more. Well, finally, at the end of the day, we headed back toward the boat launch, and check in, and I think I had 45 minutes left. Shooting for Hail Mary. There's plenty of docks there. There'd been plenty of fish released, and I'm thinking maybe I can scratch out a limit here. And fished them, wasn't getting any bites, and finally I got a bite. And set the hook on him, and I said, oh, I'm finally going to have something to cross the stage with at least. And that fish jumped, and a shaky head come out of his mouth, and it actually came back and hit me to add insult to injury. So at that point, I was silent. I put my stuff up. I think we still have 15 or 20 minutes left. I told the non-boater, come on up. It's your time. I can't do anything. And I realized, driving all the way home, being angry the night before, and then having a bad attitude that morning is what cost me that tournament. I no way think that I could have made a comeback enough to win the whole tournament. But I do think that I could have made that 1 pound up and made a comeback and win for the state of Kentucky. But that attitude of mine, that anger, I'm really convinced that's what cost me at that particular event. So, I'd like to be able to tell you that was the only time my attitude or anger cost me. But there was another one. And this one was probably a little worse. As bad as that one was. I forget the year, but it wasn't that long ago, 5 or 6 years ago. The Bass Nation Regional, or Southern Divisional as they called it then, was going to be held in Georgetown, South Carolina. And that's, if you've watched any of the Elite Series, that's the Winyah Bay, where the Elite Series has been twice in the past few years. In fact, if you watch the one from a couple years ago where Stetson Blaylock won, I was very intimate, knew that area pretty well. I even recognized the docks and everything else. But why my attitude and why my anger was bothering me for that one, I was really upset that that's where we went, you know, that choice of venue. Because I knew there were low weights and everything like that. And what really got me the most was the fact that when we're on our way and driving there, we literally drive over the bridge over Santee Cooper. And that's just a heartbreak to think that you're going over someplace as great as Santee Cooper, to go someplace where if you catch 6, 7, 8 pounds a day, you're liable to win. That's a heartbreak. I mean, that's like going toward Guntersville and deciding to fish the Ohio River or something. You know, totally different game plan. But the reason it shouldn't have bothered me is because having my experience on the Ohio River and knowing how to gut it out and catch 5, 12, 13-inch fish could have really been a big deal for me down there. In fact, when I stop and look back at it, there was myself and another river angler in there, and it should have been our tournament to win because of our experience fishing the river in tough tournaments like that. Maybe not win the whole tournament, but win for the state. That's what I mean. And I didn't take that approach to it. I took a negative approach to the whole thing, was just not happy about where we were. And it really ruined the whole trip for me. It wasn't until about the second day of the official tournament that I actually started to say, you know what, this is pretty cool. This should have been something that I should have excelled at. We had a beach house literally on the beach. You know, our bedroom door, we had a sliding screen door. I could hear the waves crashing. I could walk out the back door and walk about, I don't know, 200 or 300 feet and be in the ocean. I mean, what's not to love about that? But my attitude just kept finding all the negative of that whole situation. You know, the fact that there weren't many restaurants, there wasn't much for hotel. I will say the boat ramp was pretty awesome. But that whole trip should have been a dream for me. That trip should have been an opportunity to use the skills that I've acquired here locally and go down there and just wear those fish out. I honestly didn't believe, if you've seen the video of Stetson Blaylock, I didn't believe those kinds of fish lived in that area, but yeah, they're there. I wished I'd have known that back then. I'd have had a better attitude. But my attitude affect how I fish the whole time. You know, I was just kind of casting. Oh, there's not going to be a fish here, but I'll try it. You know, and that's no way to do it. And anger and attitude can play a whole giant role. I'm sure there's other times that my anger and attitude have really affected my performance, but those are the two biggest that I can think of. So if you've ever got a tournament, you're going into it, there may be a lot of negative things to think about, but you need to think about the positives. There's almost always positives. They may be hard to understand, but if you learn to turn those negatives into your positives, you will excel. And like I said, those should have been two opportunities for me to really do well. But live and learn. So that's it for this one. Thanks for tuning in. And if you haven't already, like I say, subscribe, give me a thumbs up, and we'll catch you the next time on Old School and Bass with Big Tim.